Okay, so welcome. Good day, good evening. So we're in the second week of the second month of the second wave. That means we're beyond the halfway point. So we're in the middle. We're in the middle of the middles. And significantly, we would, start to ground, start to practice, start to apply. And as we um, like go further um, into the next weeks, months, and years, we sense what it means to become a community or even a community of communities. And one of the things that define a community is that we have a shared language, that we have shared dialogues. We're speaking and listening to each other in a way that we can be open to new things. We can also be equal, that we all share experiences with each other, share insights, share innovations, so we're not alone. And we're simple, yet we're in the cutting edge, more or less. And we're not just living in a bubble, we're also sharing space beyond this energy process, beyond inner dance. Yet we're sharing notes with everywhere in the world where something is happening. So welcome to the call. I'm really excited about this. I want to go into practice elements. And the following weeks and months, we're going to be inviting more and more people from the community to share their own wisdom as to what does it mean to hold a space, to facilitate, what does it mean to create, to hold a studio, to produce vibrations from within and without, as well as how does one hold actual trainings, how does one transition, how does one evolve with communities. So we're going to concretize quite a bit of what we've unpacked over the months, and we can take a rest from a lot of this intense brain science. Then we start to apply that to the brain of music, which is also the music of the brain. Um, so we're going to honor the music, we're going to honor the music that's in the body. And there's so much power that's being given to those who are able to wield the music of the body. So it makes sense to get to know the body of music. It's very simple, right? It's like with the awareness that something seems valuable, something is like changing people's lives so quickly, so massively, so profoundly. If it can do that, like, do we honor it? Do we begin to explore that, like in the long term? What do you do with it? So we build a relationship with the technology, with the vibration, with music. It becomes part of our lives, you know. Um, Music, undefined, redefined, like a new music, a new brain, a new earth, new time, new space. So we start with like an interesting basic thought that we somehow had to organize it, like all of it that is happening at the same time. This complexity we were born with and into. It's like this diversity of molecules, chemicals, synaptic connections. You know, you're born with it. You could try to push it away. It's not me, it's not mine. I don't understand that. But you know, the ecosystem is there. It's there by the trillions, the gazillions, the billions, the trillions. So some people might call that noise. You know, like noise exists in the baby's mind. Noise exists in a virus, a bacteria. Noise exists in algae, in like a whale shark, in a bird. Noise exists in the wind, storms. Noise exists there's also cosmic noise. There's noise even in a quiet cave. There's actually like a lot of noise. It's not as quiet as we think. So when we go to sleep, we tend to handle what normally we think is noisy. So one of the understandings of what it means to wake up is to limit the noise, to gate the noise, to filter out the noise. So those who are involved and familiar with this work intuitively understand that we are delimiting the noise. We're preparing ourselves to be okay with the noise that is not actually noisy. In the last call, we explored what it means to have organized the noise, either from an evolutionary perspective, either from the perspective of the early human, whether it be the early human as a child or the early human as a species. You know, then we created music, we created language, we created the internet, created reading, writing, created schools. It's quite interesting that you're actually part of a community that is going back to what was before language, what was before music as we know it, what was before books, you know. So that we could make something out of it that's not been seen before, that maybe we grew up too fast, coming from this survivalism, this fear of death. We organize things out of sheer terror of going away or getting wiped out by something terrifying. So now that, you know, humans are a little bit more stable, we have this idle space. We're not just worried about putting food on the table. Our minds are opened up and we can look at it again, maybe certain spaces that we had pushed away or buried underneath. So we're able to look at it and, you know, we're discovering these tools to swim in it, to explore, to navigate it. So we would hand you tools and perspectives. Today I want to look at tools. I want to focus on giving or introducing to you the tools that are usable, at least from an inner dance construct, inner dance history. What are the tools that allow us to navigate the noise, to reconstruct ourselves within the noise? And I think that's basically music. Music organized to noise. When you look at concepts like rhythm, harmony, tonality, like these are elements that organize what we can call noise, or what we can call that which unravels through time and space. Um, so yeah, we would build a construct to understand how all of this is happening. Uh, it being like the universe, your mind. Um, okay, I think for the human consciousness, the word that would normally make sense of like any of it, all of it, some of it, is the word story. You're going to be listening to a lot of stories. If you're going to be holding space for others, you're going to be listening to a lot of stories. And literally, you're going to be sitting there and you're just going to be, if you're like holding a group, you're usually sitting there and you're just going to be thinking it's like, wow, okay, that's like a lot of stories. It's like one more story. There's another story. And um, to be able to stay intact, that you don't blow up absorbing all these stories, and some of these stories can be so intense, and then it's like one intense story after another intense story, and all of them want to be heard. And there's so many storytellers. How many story receivers does it take to absorb all those stories and get a sense of what they all mean? Um, when you look at like a song, for example, a song holds a story. There's like a beginning, and then there's an ending, and there's like a middle. When you look at a life, it's the same thing. There's like an ending, there's like a beginning, and there's like a big middle. So as not to get overwhelmed, like with me, for example, what I've been working on so that I can handle all these stories. Yeah, it could be with my mom, with my brother, with a friend, with like, and because I'm so connected with like so many people, sometimes I'm thinking it's like too many people. It's like how much can I handle when I open up my phone, and then all these. That's why I'm not in social media. I can only take so much because I'm already holding so much, even of my own. I can barely handle my own being a dad. I'm handling like these stories that demand like attention. Like I've been working out a system so that I don't feel overwhelmed, because if I'm going to open up like a story, and a body is a story, like a mind is a story, I have to be able to stay with it, amidst all the other, I don't know what to call it, like a river, an avalanche, a waterfall, like an earthquake, a volcanic eruption, a typhoon, a cyclone, um, a tornado. Like sometimes stories are like that. It's like once it opens, like it's gonna want to be looked at like all at once. All of these things that are happening inside the story, all the past and the future, is like colliding. They're all gonna want to be seen and to be heard. So to be able to stay solid, so that if you're really gonna do this work and you're gonna do your work well, and then all these stories will like jumble and mesh together, sometimes like a rainbow, sometimes like mud. um, Especially in the world of language, when people start to interrelate these meanings in words, so as things don't experience some kind of bottlenecking, some traffic jam, like in Tokyo or New York City. You want to build like an effective structure. And we are lucky right now that we do have technologies, especially in the digital, that can deal with many layers, dimensionalities, so that we don't really need to get lost. I've been doing like online courses for maybe close to 5 years now, maybe 4 years. And like it was a slow process for me of learning like one system, like another system, another system. And then I would try to learn, okay, how do I put all those systems together? So I study, like a lot of the relevant sciences, philosophies, and then I study the musical element, and that's a totally different thing. Like I work with a studio, I study an instrument, then take up another instrument, and like I did all that within the backdrop of the work. I didn't just do that for the sake of it. It was because it was relevant to the transformative experience that for me is like personal and global. And because it's important, it's all important, it's all relevant. I really put in the hours. When I wake up in the morning, and then like I can either just lay there and just work with my thoughts. I could just also stand up and walk somewhere, and I can pick up my flute, pick up a drum, take a walk, start humming around. I could do this with my body, or I could go to a synthesizer, I could go to a program, I could go to an app on my phone, and I can practice. That's often what I do when I do get bored, like when I'm doing some research on a particular interesting topic that I need to prepare for. When my mind gets a little bit frazzled, then that's maybe when I go to sound. And there's something about organizing the sounds that tells me also to organize the words and then the images. When you think about inner dance and movement, um, it's the movement that brings the sounds and the images together. That's always what it's done. Like since the beginning of our time here, which is also our space here, time and space, sound and image, it was movement that stitched them together, like the workings of the ear and the workings of the eye. And when you think of what are words, what is spoken language, it's actually what words are. They stitch together like everything we've ever seen and we've ever heard. And when you put that together, what you would end up with are words. Words can contain in concepts or containment all of the experiences of what it meant to have walked around the earth and have stored all that information, so that what we can do with that is a storification. That's what a story is. We take that for granted, but that's what humans have inherited. There's actually this long, super old, uh, began with the universe, really, began with the cosmos. And we take it for granted. We get born into it. Like, okay, I have a name, have like the stuff that happened in childhood and so on and so forth. But the mechanisms to have arrived at that is actually super, I would just say the word impossible. The the conditions of possibility that brought this into actualization is just so intense. And so now we're at this event or this moment where we actually have become aware of what's happening. In the sciences, yes, and in the inner dance, it's more like we're aware through experience. Um, a lot of you could probably relate with that moment where like so much is happening and it's so messy, but there's something about it that's so accurate, like pointed, like on point. There's something so precise about that noise and that chaos where you can pick up all the layers of the sound, the noises, the screaming, laughing, the light languaging, the music, the movements, the people knocking objects over. It's all happening at the same time, but there's something so trusting and something so accurate. If you don't know what I'm talking about, then you're not yet holding the space as well. But when you are there in the middle of the hubbub, the chaos, the war, the war, the chaos, there's order there. There's something there that's coordinating all of the molecules, the atoms, the cells, the quarks, the days, the rooms, the beings. There's then only one room. There's only one day. There's only one there's only one room. There's actually only ever been one room and there's only one day that's pretending there's many. So that's a dimensionality that we have been working our way towards. And like in my work, my experience, that has been the reality anyway, where we can get there, and it gets to a point where we don't get there. It's always there. So now we're just wondering what are the conditions for us to just always be aware. And a lot of people are needing intensity because of the blockages and the the resistances that do separate us from what is like always there to begin with, which now we can call noise and chaos. Actually, there's organization there. There's a lot of order there. Um, so yeah, I think it's really important to start from a history or a herstory, narrativization, um, that's wide enough, that's big enough, so that you don't get like pulled down into no, that's really particular. It's not that. It's a lot deeper. It's bigger, and sometimes conflicts arise when people personalize, identify, and try to filter. No, no, it's what I think, that I think it's true, but then that often doesn't really go anywhere. That just goes in a circle. You open the door in that one, you're just going to end up in the same place. So to just really go forward, I think we're ready for like a newer story, like a much bigger story. And that story has to be heard initially in the body and in the brain. And then later on, the mind becomes aware, because the more information you're able to hold, the more you're able to live it, the more you're able to embody it. And if it's not really just coming from like my story, which is motivated by my intentions, what are my needs, how much do I need in the bank, how much power do I need to wield, when we go beyond that, then what you're holding more is the story of the human. And when that's something you hold, and that's what other people will hear. And the more you hold that, then you're not walking around as just your name. There's an awareness there where you really know where you're coming from. Where have you been? How long have you been here? How many times have you done this? You then devote more and more to, so again, like when I mentioned the word music, um, it's a really old technology. It might have been limited by industry, which has gotten freed up. Like I want to help you understand that inner dance music unto itself is a genre that is emerging. It's actually a new musical form. Um, like you probably know what karaoke means. Karaoke was actually invented not initially in Japan. The first patent holder of the karaoke is actually a Filipino. So when you think about this technology where people can make up their own music um, after having a few drinks, and that's coming from the Philippines. So when you think about the inner dance, when you think of it, it's actually the opposite of karaoke. Karaoke is a collective consciousness system where people can't really express themselves really well. They use music to be received, all the emotions that they can't speak about. And I know it because I live here in the Philippines, and you go to places where people can't talk over problems. They will communicate it in a very particular way, and it's through karaoke. Inner dance then is quite the opposite. It's not about the production of the sound. It's how do you receive the sound? How do you receive that vibration, those messages, um, in a way that's collective? That's so then when you put these two elements together, okay, like dance, reception, how do you then think about the 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 complement? The complement is like how do you then still go into production, not copying songs from Barry Manilow or Billy Joel or Guns N' Roses or Metallica, which is still repeating the story. If you were channeling the energy, and the energy is quite new, to give you the power to produce your own music. It could be through, let's say, like an instrument, that's been organized in space already, like in a certain way. Um, there's some, there's a lot that you can do. There's so much that you can do. Um, if you're becoming the energy will speak to you, and it could use words, it could use touch, but more often than not, it's going to want to use vibration because that is what has allowed society over the long term to activate the brain enough for us to reach the levels of complexity that needed to store information initially through sound, and we're storing it in our bodies. The greater complexity is when we learned how to like store the sound and make it an image. And then what we're doing in inner dance is we're actually taking that image and then we're transforming it back to sound. And there's so much information that's actually inside the image. Like a single image can store a million sounds and a million stories. And people have, tended towards trying to trap the sound into the image. It has something to do with the fear of death. When you make a sound, the sound is already dying even when it's being born. An image can stay. That's why a lot of people are just so focused on the image, especially in social media. It's like, okay, when I die, that image is going to be there. That's what images were for in photography a long time ago, so that when I'm gone, you would remember me because my sound is gone. Um, so now, yeah, so we're looking at the sound. We're going back to the sound as a culture, as a species. So okay, um, I want to focus more today on wait. Concept of rhythm. Okay, let me just work this out. My iPad shuts down in the early mornings. It's like a setting that uh, the mother of my kids did to protect them from the gadgets, and then they connected to my iPad. So, okay. Rather than activation, like a word that you can use, not that is entrainment. What is entrainment as opposed to entertainment? It's a really important topic, not just in the work that we do, but in the sciences. Brain entrainment, even heart entrainment, circadian entrainment is really, really important. So we can untrain and retrain the body. So rhythm is, I would say, the most powerful entrainment tool. And rhythm doesn't just exist in music. Rhythms exist in, just how you feel at a particular day, or for women, particular time of the month. Um, so yeah, rhythm belongs in songs. And so songs actually just like mirrored the types of entrainment that was already going on in the body to begin with. So what I would love for you to study and master is how to work with rhythms. Okay, now we can simplify this as what is your rhythm? Like, are you finding your rhythm? But the truth is actually like a rhythm in the human sense is probably like made up of a whole bunch of rhythms. There's like small rhythms, like bigger rhythms, complicated rhythms. And what the mind and body does is it brings all these rhythms together. So when you conduct like an inner dance process, you're more or less doing that. You're more or less like taking like a whole bunch of rhythms, and then you're basically like adding them together or combining them together so that you end up with with something like I don't know what it would actually look like. This is a grand simplification. It would probably would look like, some Leonardo da Vinci painting that you splashed over with a Picasso and you just took that up into a spaceship, and when it came back, it would look like something. Like a lot of people don't actually like seeing themselves as energy. They're looking for like a word or a story to contain them. But yeah, we don't look like what we would like to look like. Basically, we would look like these. We would look like squiggles if we could represent you. So, as a facilitator, you have a choice. You either can work with something that's already built, okay? Like that could have been built by Michael Jackson or Bob Marley. That could have been built by Quincy Jones. And a song is already like a complete entity. It's like it has a whole story unto itself. So when you work with something like that, something implied, something that's pre-recorded, preconditioned, then like in the last call, we were talking about how then inner dance would be initially a way of moving from one song to another song, which is really a story to another story. Um, Now, a lot of facilitators, they moved away from this, including me. I don't really like using songs anymore. Um, so what we would consider is going a little bit more primal or a little bit more, I would just say deeper. A song is made up of like many parts, as we might have spoken about again and again. It could be made of rhythm, it could be made of harmonics, and then there would be a melody in it. Okay. What is rhythm, harmony, and melody anyway? It's actually quite simple. Like when you look at the whole the this this persistent grid that we keep bringing up, which is space and time. Rhythm exists here, and harmony would exist here in space. Um, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, like one at a time. And then that's rhythm, like boom, 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 boom. And space would be like all these notes or all these tonalities happening either two at a time or three at a time or four at a time or maybe 10 at a time. It depends on like how rich or layered it is. So when you think of melody, melody is actually a combination of both. Like you can sing a song like a b c d e f g h i j k. So there you need to unravel through time. From to get from A to Z, need to unravel through time, but you need to rise up and fall down. Um, in a vertical way. There's like the horizontal, you could just hear, and then there's the vertical. And so melody is a story unto itself when you think about it. And that could be either through, um, yeah, the combination of sounds and images, but it's actually the movement. Like melody is the movement, melody is the dance that carries us across space and time, sounds and images. So that's what a song is. So you can realize that, okay, that's going on in my brain, right? That's going on in today, tomorrow, that's going to be going on. It's going to start in the morning, it's going to end in the evening, and there's going to be a whole bunch of movements across high and low, like amplitude, volume, intensity. It's either going to relax or it's going to get intense depending on what I drank or what I ate or like what I heard or where I went. So it's actually that simple. And even when I can conduct like the work that I do in inner dance, like this is the starting point for me. I realized this even in the beginning that, okay, that's what I'm doing. So I need tools. It's either spatial or temporal or both. Okay, so I have all these tools that can manage time and space. So the choice that I'm presenting here, just just as what we have shared with so many people, is you can either work with songs, okay, collect songs from Spotify or from iTunes, and then just manage all that, um, or construct the songs from scratch. You know, like that you can construct a song, like work with the basic elements of the story, and then construct it from the ground up, like in time or space, either in your studio at home or live on the spot. And this is something you can study, over the next weeks, months, or years. So, for example, what makes story possible in the human sense is language. Like language organizes our stories, either in the spoken word or the written word, or in the thinking word or in the digital word. Um, and language is built like a song as well. Like there's actually like a lot of rhythm. There's rhythmicity in language. Like when you speak, there's a kind of sing song where it's you're singing what you are speaking in many ways. There's a lot of texture in language because language unto itself is text. Okay, meaning you can just keep going on and on. Like language is musical basically, and the roots of language was music unto itself, which is one of the reasons why we're going not into the words initially in the process. We're going into the vibration primarily because this started from this. And so we go back to this in many ways, from the roots of it. Let's say when the first cavemen, the first early humans started to create rhythm and to sing together as a tribe, they began to communicate with each other from a proto language, a pre-verbal way, and they conveyed meanings. They were super basic, like quite basic. And in that sense, they were able to create like a story that they had not seen before. And that's where mythologies, religions, which would later on become literature, that's where they came from. So to allow people to construct like new stories, you can either give them just this, if you give them a song, it's already like a pre-written story, and it holds like an emotion. It holds the context from the 1960s, 70s, 80s, 90s. Say if you work with Beethoven or Mozart, like maybe a lot older, but they're not new stories. If you were to give them new stories, then what you would give are the basics first. You know what I mean? So especially when you are working with the energy, and the energy itself is the musician, the energy is the music producer, the energy is the DJ. If we give the energy through you, the tools, then the energy would create the music, starting from the basics. Okay, so yeah, like that's why rhythm is the first um, topic, because I would say rhythm is the first musical element. Like in the music language theory, there's a story of how the early humans, when they were there was an event. Let's say there was like the hunt, and then the hunt was successful. Let's say they captured an animal, or let's say there was a war with another tribe, and then they won. Upon winning, they were making like a lot of noise, and as their hands started to clap together and their feet stomp together, that noise organized into some kind of pattern. And then the more they kept celebrating, the more the humans started to bond together in a tribal way. That pattern became like a rhythm. And when they were shouting, screaming, learning to use their vocal cords, that eventually started to sing together. And when they brought these together, they started to create like really basic songs, that which began in time and organizing space, that actually started to construct like stories. And cultures emerged from that, so that later language would store a lot more information that had to be passed on across generations. In the beginning, in the family system and the tribe, but later on in society itself, when we started to organize governments, economies, and so on and so forth. So music actually holds that key, and a lot of researchers, they don't really like to speak in this way because it seems so basic. But actually, in anthropology, there are certain academic circles that prevented the study of the roots. Oops, this is so small. The uh, the origins of language. Like in France, for example, they actually prohibited scientists to study or think about the origins of language, primarily because there's no way to really know where language came from, because language is that which is before history, and we haven't invented time machines yet. So how can we actually go into the origins of language? So um, when people did there, like Musi language is one of the theories of how language began. So that music is in fact the roots, and it is then the universal language. Yeah. So there. So rhythm organizes. Let's just go straight to the heart of it. Rhythm organizes time, and that gives you a lot of power. Depending on the rhythm that you hold, which is measurable as tempo. You can also call it the pulse. In Philippines, you call it pulso. Healers work with the pulso. What is your pulse? Humans have such a thing as pulse perception, and um, honestly, like most animals don't seem to have pulse perception that's relatable to human terms. Like many animals, they can't syncopate to human rhythms. They can't tap to a beat, they can't dance to a beat. um, and it's measurable through BPM, which is beats per minute. So you're going to learn how to hold different BPM levels, and you're going to study what is the rate. Here's a term that I would like you to familiarize with. Like, what is the rate? What is a rhythmic rate? And a rate is something you would not just see in music. Rate is something that you would see in, let's say, a heart rate, and um, these are lungs, by the way. I can't draw it. Heart rate. Um, so rate involves time, yeah, like how fast or how slow, how many cycles per second, how many beats per minute. And if there is such a thing as rate, there has to be something signifying space, right? Okay, that's time. So space would be, the term for space would be depth. This at least would be relatable to breathing. So there is such a thing as breath depth, as we're still a little bit coming out of the memory of COVID, when you had to wear these face masks. One of the things that was affected was breath depth, and the less air that you can breathe in and out, in terms of volume, that you had to make up for that in terms of breath rate. Okay, so when you couldn't take in as much air during COVID, your breath rate actually had to increase when you were wearing face masks, and that led to the increase in heart rate in a lot of people without them noticing it. Like when they're walking around wearing a face mask, um, because you're not breathing very well. Sorry, I think I drew this. During COVID, this is more like this. Breath depth was minimized, and so breath rate has to adjust. Okay. When you think about space in terms of heart, then you're talking about stroke volume. Stroke volume would be related to like how much blood is flowing through your veins, which is signaled by the heart. Um, and so there's like how fast your heart is beating, how slow, and how much blood is flowing through. Same with air, like how fast are you breathing or how deep are you breathing. Now this is important primarily because when you use music, rhythm and harmony will affect breath rate and depth, right? And it will affect stroke volume and heart rate. When you add stroke volume and heart rate, what you have is cardiac output. And like a healthy human being has like a really good cardiac output. And when you reduce cardiac output, then there's a problem. But too much cardiac output would also be like high blood pressure. So music can affect all of that, just as a lot of the other mechanisms that we were studying. So let's go back to this initially. Like rhythm organizes time. Um, Now, there are many rhythms in the body. So the body has different time mechanisms. Yeah. We've been discussing quite a bit already. So the maybe the one of the highest time measurements in the human would be the neural oscillations. Okay. Actually, there are oscillations prior to them becoming brain waves. Brain waves organize neural oscillations. Brain waves synchronize neural oscillations. So uh, some of the things that we do would activate neural oscillations. They would create synchronizations between neural oscillations. We already talked about time in relation to breathing and time in relation to, let's say, what like yeah, like heart rate, cardiac output, like stroke volume. But then you would have the circadian rhythms. The circadian system would organize rhythm in accordance to not in a matter of like milliseconds or like cycles per minute or cycles per seconds. It would organize it according to a 24-hour like rhythm. Circannual rhythms would try to organize your rhythms within 12 months. So what we're seeing here is you have like a whole bunch of rhythms, like super small and super like big, high in amplitude or low in amplitude, or high in frequency, low in frequency. And what you're doing is you're organizing all of these rhythms somehow you're trying to bring it together so that they would synchronize with each other, that they would be coherent, that they would mesh. So what you do have, right, this 60 to 90 minutes. This is what you have with people. Okay, they're coming, I can hold that space with them, they're coordinating. But when you hold those 60 to 90 minutes, you're actually going to bring these up. Yeah. So one way to think about the slow to fast is, or fast to slow would be, there are metabolic rhythms, rhythms related to immunity. And when you work with the inner dance construct, there are also rhythms related to emotions. And there people also have rhythms related to thoughts. So these would be the faster, higher, the oscillations related to immunity and metabolism tend to be like a lot higher, a lot faster. Here it might be neural. And then on the thought level, when you translate a lot of that into the into words, into language, into thoughts, you tend to slow down the rhythm. So actually, like the rhythm of a thought is a slowed down oscillation that tends to be quite fast. So when you activate people, when people use these terms, like when you activate people, when you speed up the rhythms, and people call that energy, it's also just unrecognizable systems thoughts cannot handle. Okay. So for you to be able to think about it, you actually need to slow down the rhythms, the oscillations, if you will. So yeah, when you speed it up, then there won't be thoughts anymore, and the body really just vibrates with that. It doesn't recognize that from like a thinking or feeling state. Feelings would be like something here, like it's in between emotions and thoughts. Feelings are emotions that you can recognize, and then when you are able to make that explicit and clear, then that's already a thought system. So studying the brain, this is what we do, um, in order to like bring this into the neocortex, especially in the association areas of the brain, where you're now bringing sounds, images, movements, all the sensations when they associate together. That's a thought. You're able to collaborate multiple associations into a single symbol, or a set of symbols that's not so overwhelming. But here, when you bring that into the energetic level, you're not making associations. You cannot, because you're working with a basic level, um, like elements that the human body works with. So when I talk about rhythm, this is partly what I mean, that you can work with very, very fast frequencies, but you can also work with slowing things down. And so when you study rhythm, you will want to look for tools that helps you to hold like super slow and super fast. You want to look for the super fast ones. You want to look for slow ones. So I'm going to be showing you some instruments that I prepared today in the form of synthesizers. Okay, I'm turning them on. Um, just so I can demonstrate this just a moment, in a sonic way, so that I'm not like just talking about it, but I can help you visualize it through sound, you know. Okay, but before all that, let's uh, just a few just a few things. So when you look at some DJ machines and some tools, you're still going to be working with these. Like this is rate, this is depth. Okay, rate would determine like how many cycles per duration, could be per minute or per second, and then depth would be how high or high low. Okay, how shallow or how deep would it go? Would it be high or would it be low? I want you to understand that when you conduct these, you would be activating these parts of the brain, which we might have talked about. Could be like the pons, it could be the cerebellum, it could be the basal ganglia, could be the sinoatrial node in the heart. The things that you do in music and touch will affect depth and rate in the body. And so we like to think of brain, breath, and blood, because these can influence everything else, like heart rate, breath rate, brain waves. These can influence, especially rate. Rate especially will be the more powerful. Like rate will be what you start out with. So we will be giving you in the long term like tools to handle rate. Um, so it's either the vertical or the horizontal. Yeah. Um, and that this is what the body's doing. It's trying to manage depth and rate, basically. So because we studied the circadian rhythms, this is actually what it is. And I guess when you really look deeply into this, there would be a whole bunch of small rhythms like inside. doing all kinds of things. So before we go into a conversation of the 12 stages of awakening, which we'll bring up maybe in the next month, we want to understand the sleep stages, which is the inner dance playlist, a little bit more carefully, so that we can slap on the emotional qualities. Sorry, someone's not muted. I'm just gonna, yeah. Mm, I think it's you, Magali. I'm not sure. Or Benedict, you're unmuted as well. Uh, okay, wait. Not done with my screen yet, so just stay with me. So one of the questions or interesting things I want to bring up would be, how do you hold rate? That would be the first. And then the next would be, how do you hold uh, like a multiplication or multiple rates? Okay, like this is the technique. This is actually what has made the inner dance work like all this time. Rate could be frequency. It's like how many events per duration. So multiple rates would look something like this. There could be basic subdivision. And in the last call, we talked about how Western music had simplified musical systems so that you can. So this would be like a meter, for example. It's like 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you repeat that. That's what a meter is. It's like a repeating pattern. Could be 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So you slow down. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So what music has done is starting from the basic meter, where there would be a measure of like the beats per meter. Then you can start to bring in elements within the meter. So this would be super basic. It's a concept that within 1, 2, 3, 4 would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. You build rhythms inside rhythms. Um, you know what I mean? So this is, intuitive and basic for you to understand, for especially for musicians out there. In the inner dance, we can work with these. There's the rate. Before multiple rates, there's the basic rates that um, humans would recognize. It's called the rate of salience. Salience would be recognizability. And when you study BPM, or beats per minute, this would be between about 40 or 60 to about 150 to 200. I'm going to just give a range. I don't want to commit to, because there are different claims as to what is recognizable as music. So we're gonna go like a lot more intense, or we're gonna go beyond the rate of salience. So instead of this, then there might be like more subdivisions, and then let's say like like don't underestimate like the amount of subdivisions the human brain can work with. I can't even uh like when you look at it from far away, you don't really see the smaller units, but these are small rhythms. These are tiny rhythms hidden or organized by bigger rhythms. So that's something that you can do. It depends on how well you, or how confident you would work with um, scaling, but don't be scared. Don't be scared to scale from big to small. Like the question is how big or how small. And the idea here is um, the greater the scale, the greater the sensitivity as to the especially the small. Okay, it's pretty easy to hold the big. The big wouldn't maybe even look like this. You work with something a lot slower than this. Let's say a BPM of, let's say, 40 beats per minute would be boom, boom, or maybe even slower than that. I'm just impatient, so I don't want to show you what 40 BPM looks like, or 20 BPM. Can you? I mean, imagine counting to 20 and you had a minute to do it. It would be quite slow. So the musical elements that you might bring in there would be meditative already. It would you might call meditative music. It would hold like a lot of delta or theta frequencies. That's easy to do. Like to bring people into the cosmos or to the big, the big is basically meta cognition. It's to look from up above and to see all the patterns. To go into the small, the tiny, um, you would need to go into the meta. No, the mesa. Mesa cognition is to look at the small or the tiny. So that would be one of your interesting experiments or explorations. How can I make people look at the small? I can easily make them look at the big picture, which is actually looking at the whole universe as if it was nothing. It was just a whole bunch of stars. But to go into the story elements means working with tiny, tiny rhythms. Now, this becomes possible not uh, by holding big separately from the small. There has to be a relationship between the big and the small. So what you would learn is how to oscillate between big and small to a certain point where you're holding big and small together. Now, still working with song elements can be quite effective. Songs are very good at mesa cognition. You want people to look at like parts of their lives, then songs can hold a lot of emotional content. You want to work with big or meta, then you're not working so much with songs. You're working with frequencies. And when you talk about meditative music, a lot of those aren't lyrical. They don't have informational content. They're frequency based. They hold mostly like delta frequencies that slow down time. So song elements are still quite good when you hold a mesa cognitive. So oscillating between songs and frequencies can do that quite easily. Yeah, so right now I would love to just bring you into instrumentation so you can study how you might use instruments. I'm going to demonstrate apps in the phone, actually in the iPad because this was connected to my laptop. But I want to demonstrate maybe some instruments. So let me look for a screen share option that allows me to share just the sound. Wait, share sound. Okay. And okay, I set up two particular instruments. That this is a whole, no, not two instruments, but two cameras. Let me start with this one. This one. Okay, and I hope the sound comes through. I'm not sure. I didn't really do a test. Okay, so yeah, it is working. So this is a Pulsar 20. Wait, let's work from internal. The volume needs some work. Okay, so what the thing I have here is the metronome. It's just going. Let me take that out. And so what this can demonstrate at least is how to hold different rates. So this in particular, oh, I have to use these alligator clips. So I can adjust the tempo through here. What I need to do is I need to connect the triggers to these particular um, beat measurements. So this is slower. Actually, I don't even need these. I could even just touch them. No, it's not working. Sorry. So let me just demonstrate like one beat. Slow it down a bit. And then this is another instrument. This is basically like a hi-hat. So this is what I use in the trainings nowadays. If I'm not using music, if I'm doing demos, I would provide entrainment devices. So this holds a particular rate. So what I'm demonstrating is this is the basic divisions in time the rhythm is holding, and like what I would be looking for is another rhythmic element that holds subdivisions within the basic division of time. So just feeling into what the energy feels like without the bass. That's just the hi-hat going on itself. And without the hi-hat, just the bass. They do separate things basically. So meaning when you bring them together, then you have two rhythms basically happening at the same time. So attuning people to that, then it's really up to you how many other rhythms you might begin to hold. This is blue. So this is me just creating 3 rhythms on top, 4 rhythms ongoing at the same time. And adjusting the rhythm. Meaning like once people get used to or acclimatized to a particular rhythm, speeding it up to something unrecognizable would happen at a certain point when I know that they can handle that amount of information. So the difference in slowing it down would be quite a contrast. Don't be scared with how much information can subliminally be activated in brains. Exposing them to something like this, even in the absence of melody or harmonics, the human brain can hear. It's going to hear like what is coming through information wise, and it's in the contrast between the slow and the fast, slow and the fast. So anything that you can use, whether it be a digital instrument or an analog instrument that can bring people into the contrast, would be what you're offering. Okay, so I just wanted to use this instrument in particular to demonstrate rate, so it doesn't stay conceptual. Okay, let me move to another camera. Okay, so what is this connected to? Hmm. Hmm. I'm not getting anything out of it. Oh, sorry, it's the channel. Let me protect you from, I need to um, create another channel in my Ableton program. There you go. Okay. Oh, sorry. Wait. Okay. So this in particular, let me check the camera just to ensure it's on screen. This one. This one I particularly appreciate because of the obviousness of the rate. So for me, when I speak about rate, I'm speaking about divisions in time. So there's an obvious enough division in time. I can change the pitch, but that's already speaking about depth. But to control the speed, influencing the heartbeat, influencing the breath rate, okay? This controls the shape of the wave. So this is the wave. This is a triangle wave, and this is a square. And it's up to you how difference would look like or feel like in your body. We're not talking about waveforms yet, but just speaking about rate. I tend to gravitate towards instruments that can hold that much rate. And so you can see the faster it goes, you can't actually recognize the rate anymore. That's what I mean about rate of salience. It just feels like one wave. But the brain can recognize the multiples in that wave. It's just that, sometimes your prefrontal cortex can't catch up with it. And then you stay, you can just leave that there at a certain point in the journey where they are organizing time in that particular dimension. So here I can work with, this is time. This helps me work with time. This is space. So adding like a bunch of harmonics under over it. It's always in the contrast. Okay, so let's go to the iPad. And without needing these analog instruments, like in your workshop space or in your room. Oh, not that. Okay, let's look at the library. So let's go to the DJ app today. Let's look at the noise app. Just to make correlations, let's look at the synthesizer. Just so if you were interested in frequencies, then you can still have it. You don't need to buy an actual synthesizer. And then let's look at the launch pad as well. Yeah. So let's start maybe with this one because we just first looked at the synthesizers. All right. So if you wanted to hold just the frequency, literally you would just hold. So you press this hold button. We'll give you the link to what this app is, and we'll study this more, but you can download it. It's actually free. You don't need to pay for it. So I'm going to press a button here. Or meaning this is octave, so I can go low or I can go high. So because I press the hold button, I just need to press A0 once, meaning A octave 0, and it's just going to keep playing. And say I wanted to hold like something high-ish. So because it's in the hold option, then you have the frequencies happening. So whatever else might be happening in the sonic space, you could have a song on, you could have on a noise app. This is just playing the whole time. So let's say you wanted to bring in some variation here, understanding the power of rate and depth. All you would need is to press the ARP button. ARP is short for arpeggio. So now you have a pattern. How many notes did we press? It was just 2, right? 2. If you wanted to add to that, then you can just press, let's say, A2. Or anything else that might be suggested. It's the lit buttons. So speaking about rate, this is where you would go, like the effects section. You would have the arpeggiator here, just to establish what control you have, which is the octave, one at low, one somewhere in the middle. But it would be here in the division where you can add subdivisions to the basic pattern that you started. So now there's just really more notes within the same basic duration, It just multiplies it. It's pure math. And let's say you just want to add complexity to it. Oh, sorry. What is that? It's the ping pong. I've never actually used this in this way before, but I was just toying around with it before the call, just to look for elements that could demonstrate the concept that I'm working on, which is how to hold multiple rhythms, which is actually still built on a one rhythm. It's just that you're able to hold like multiple rhythms within the basic rhythm that you initially bring in. So this is the launch pad. No, it's not this. So that's another way to understand, yeah, the same concept. So I really just went into the FX section, and yeah, you need to toggle. I haven't really used this so much, and I should. I'm demonstrating why I'm not giving it up. Like it's gonna be there for when I need it. So these are two programs where you are being given some element of control based on what's provided. Let's look at how this works. Okay. So yeah, falling sky is fine.
And we'll be on the subject of waves.
Good. We choose from here. So this is the pad right here, and this is depth. Literally, this is depth, and this is rate. So it's a bit.
So hold me now.
It doesn't sound so playable when you have just that alone. So what you normally would look for is something to put underneath. More of a noise gate. there's a lot more inputs to this. I'm really just demonstrating the rhythm within the rhythm input. So when we then go into the my noise, it's a somewhat of a different system. Now, this is something that we are recommending for those who want it easy. This doesn't give you so much control over the actual speed that would oscillate. So what you would be looking for are just the existing elements that have the frequencies. These are the frequencies. It's a little bit simpler to use. It's just working with these sliders so that you bring into presence what you want to evoke. Okay, so because isochronic tones gives you oscillations that are like quite fast, and you do have the ability to bring in something recognizable, and they could still complement each other. So this is recognizable. People are acclimatized, they're used to it. So what you're lacking here is something slow. Okay, so that's the noise app. Yeah, those would be the good ones to demonstrate. Okay, let me just take you through some last ideas or points, then we could have a conversation. Yeah, but for now, I just wanted to demonstrate, and I hope it's clear to you what I'm situating here. That inner dance works with the ability to combine like rhythms. It's always been that, like it's this plus this equals like a certain wave that's mixed up. And in the last calls, we spoke about like this particular wave representing the inner dance playlist. So there's some science and there's some intuition as to the write this starting here maybe. There's some science and there's some intuition as to what might be happening when you start things out this is the stages of awakening, and it ends up at number 12, 11, 10, 9, 8. Okay, so we won't be going too deep into the 12 stages. It requires a call into itself. I'm actually going to be asking the community to help me with this call. I'm not so good at holding it anymore. So we spoke about the sleep stages. Yeah. This is acting up. The sleep stages, or the stages of sleep. Those being like non-REM. What? I think it's non-REM 1, Let's make this stick. Non-rem 1, non-rem 2. Uh, not whatever. Non-rem 3 and then rem. Non-rem 3 and then N2. Um, so yeah, in the long term, what we would just be studying, and we can go into reviews on this, would be it would be the transition. What is that? It's a transition between, that's cool. Uh, Between the stages from N1 to N2, N3, and then REM, and then N2, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Like, you can study the stages, but what you would be looking at when you do use instruments would be the transition phases. It would be the journey from 1 to 2 to 3, and so on and so forth. And so actually that's where real instruments might be interesting. So let's see. Like one of these, it's so light, you can carry it with you. Initially, let's say you hold it the first time, it's like, okay, it's interesting. What does it do? In the hands of a facilitator, it would be easy to see that this would affect people. You know, you go in your body and then you can do something.
Hi,
So,
if you show something, it's not showing up.
oh yeah, it's my, it's that one. So yeah, it's just an egg. It's like an egg shaker. Um, so when you study rhythm, then it's really just looking for a pattern that would complement like whatever's happening in the space, understanding that this can help to organize time. So something like this can be used for creating the constant, meaning a rhythm creates predictability and anticipation so that people can land or situate themselves within a certain dimension. So what you can do is to bring some complexity to it. And in music, you would have these terms like the groove, the accent. You can have like the transition. Now, an accent would be something like this. So let's say this is your basic beat. An accent would be when you place emphasis either on the downbeat or on.
Sorry, Pai.
Mhm.
As you make noise cancellation, the soon reads the shaker with how a noise. I don't know if you need to cancel the noise, the noise
Okay.
cancellation. Okay.
Where do I do that? Do you know how to do that?
Put musician on
And where do I do that?
top left.
Yes, on top of the list. Original sound for musicians need to activate it. Yeah. It's just one click on top of our beside to recording. Yeah.
I have like meeting information, pause, stop recording in English. Wait. So what happens when I press on meeting information? Security settings overview. There's the settings. Okay. Thank you. So I have the settings on. Where would it be? Musician. General. Maybe I'll give it up. Maybe that could just be. I'm hearing from the musicians here. Maybe you guys can help me on a later call. I would love for that to just come up. I think this has been a lot. I've been an hour and 40 minutes. It's a lot of basics that can, be threshed further later. I'm sure a lot of people have ideas or questions from these. Maybe the best is just to introduce. I was actually starting to go into music theory. Okay, so let's open the space. How can we develop this conversation? And I'm hoping that we're creating a bridge between like what we have discussed in the prior weeks, the prior months around the brain regions, around even like the rest of the body, the autonomic nervous system, the heartbeat, and so on and so forth. Yeah, like anyone would like to raise their hand? And yeah, like we'll hold tutorials later on just to go deeper into some of the programs. Oscar, let's go with you first.
Hi everyone. Well, I have to say that this call was very organized. I think that it was very cool for all participants, and I'm sure that it will be a very good beginning for all these concepts and the way that you were interacting. I'm really, really excited, and it was touching me. I will put outside my role as musician, and I want to come here as a facilitator and bring attention to aspects that I think that they can contribute to connecting those basic concepts with the aspect of facilitation and conducing non-music is how we can. I will develop the notes that I was taking from your speech. Well, it was calling my attention a few things. For example, how when you take us into the perspective of organizing chaos, well, the human concept about chaos is disorder, and how organizing disorder, it doesn't mean that it will be organized. It means that it have a purpose. How we can see purposefully their noise in order to use it, and dialoguing and becoming this assisting interpretation between consciousness, and how we can translate information between the bodies, the mind, and participants, and also how the facilitator becomes, through the practice, more cozy in the environment when he is held by the space, holding the space, and the noise is not his own disorder. I think that as we came from systems where you used to use music, noise is very overwhelming and not comfortable for many of the new people, the guys that are entering into the process. And sometimes we are judging the noise and these playlists that they have a lot of information for the bodies, because we are not having we are developing a meta system to understand and navigating in between noise and chaos. I think that this was very important for the calling, and I'm happy to get a few concepts for sharing with the participants in Latin and for those that would like to go. Also, rhythm, harmony, and tonality for sure is how to understand all these elements beyond the music, which is something that I try to put always, because if we still embracing and containing things in a Western understanding, we are very limited and we are very restricted, and sometimes prejudging ourselves in our apparent incapacities to get musical concepts easily. So how we can, as you place it, how we are understanding rhythm, harmony, and tonality just as three other languages that we have for expanding our capacity to handle languages and holding even more through the process. Other thing that I wrote was all the stories that want to be seen and validated. How the body, of course, is a story. How, of course, the consciousness and the mind can help us to hold this meta system as a participants. But at the same time, how the library is inside the cells, because how to connect all these dimensionalities that they are inside the body at the same time. How consciousness and the same library is very deep in this mesa and meta. How meta is about the consciousness and the bigger, and meta and mesa is inside the body, which when we understand body more properly in the basic bricks, we understand the DNA is already entangled with the conscious of the universe. So how we create conditions to translate this information and becoming this information usable for bodies in these perception conditions and sound conductions. And how important is us as facilitators create conditions for people coming to listen deeply their stories. How we can not also offering a service or a session, how we educate minds and body to dealing and listening more deeply themselves. And I think that this is one of the many key points that it's the facilitation development can bring us in order to conducing more more better conditions for people participate in the translation of consciousness and the dancing that we are having between energy and information. I'm going here to the next note. Okay. So for me, coming to you, to Maya, and also being in the different cycles of study, has been also an opportunity to deconstructing the musician person, the musician persona, and I think that everyone here is all the time having new opportunities to embracing new concepts and possibilities. In my space, being able to in the beginning jump into these technologies when I came from acoustic performance, and coming now to finding a midway how we can use this technology and also how we can be instruments at the same time in real time. I think that this is an important question that we have to still making about not just if I am related with music or we are related with music, how we can recognize ourselves as music, and also in these differentiations between rhythms, melody, and harmony. But basically, how to vanish this apparent separation, even the world. I'm not talking just about the participants in this training, how many people feel themselves so far of music, and how they don't recognize themselves as music instead to the role of musician. Another note has to be how yes, rhythm is of course the language of creation, and the circle is the expression of the by excellence of the eternity. When we are creating rhythms, we are making cycles, we are making spirals, circle, eternity, rhythms, and being able to manipulate them is understand this as access to the power of creation, but in a very humble way, in a very meaningful way, beyond the role of power that ego, mind system, and masculine patriarchalist system they can put in our very perception. So the capacity to access into the manipulation of rhythms is also the capacity to make dialogue in chaos or system of chaos between them, and starting to see, as you say, Abdi, the assertivity in the middle of the chaos. How we can start to unravel the patterns that are always present, than before they were not accessible to us as something understandable, as a consciousness dialoguing with ourselves and dialoguing with the body. Also, I'm turning and I'm jumping to the technology, the device that you have, and I still in between when I'm sampling music and taking elements of songs, not taking voices, not taking the stories of the song. I really feel that in between this transition to a different technology and way to hold the space, I'm talking my personal experience and giving myself time to do that, and mastering that. I think that the possibilities in my case when I'm organizing sound and taking some aspects, some photograph of the sounds, that they are reminding some dimensions of the consciousness or dimensionalities, and being able to manipulate logic or all these programs that we have here in front for the future, is in being able to cut some pieces of the story and putting some meanings together for giving a new meaning for the experience of sound. Also is a good tool where in between the noise and the sound they can do their other aspects between the personal, planetary, and cosmic ensemble. I can say maybe it's an ensemble of these dimensionalities at the same time. And maybe the last note, I will be a bit musician in this expression. For me as musician, what we call music is the cultural appropriation or the development of a civilization to handle energy and information in an organized way. We talk about music as a concept that we are constructing, but what we are manipulating is energy and information. So again, taking outside the word music, taking outside the weight in our shoulders that for few of us can be in front of the reality that we are manipulating music and becoming more creative, intuitive, and lighter with the concept that we are manipulating energy and information can be a very good approach for many of us and for people that they don't feel themselves that they are capable to be in resonance with an organized system inside the music system. Maybe I have one note more here. No, I feel that it was an amazing explanation. I feel very inspired to contributing in the next callings, and also I'm developing something. Not developing. I'm just trying to organize from my conditioning a certain aspect of my noise, because maybe it can help to people to understand how by itself certain noise and gestures they are suggesting certain brainwaves and oscillations, and how we can organize inside the system that already my noise have a system that is not directly related with this concept, but how we can use these neural oscillations patterns and this a way to understanding the layers of synchronicity, how we can have for the guys certain sounds, some aspect quality of gestures that they will be suggesting some beta, some gamma, some delta, and maybe it can also not giving a room or a box, but for sure definitely will help to contributing to familiarize and becoming more confident using exploring new sounds in this big library. Because even if we can counting how many sounds are there, there's a lot of information, a lot of things that even myself I couldn't practice until now. So thank you so much.
Yeah, I think the way to go from here onwards is we can actually be creative and open up July for possible extra calls for those who are interested, because it becomes quite difficult to create a survey. Like what we're doing in the calls normally is we conduct a survey. So sometimes when you go to college, you go to a survey course. So it could be, say, an introduction to literature and an introduction to philosophy. And in that course, you would be taking up like everything to do with the big topic, the big subject matter. But there would be specific coursework that are very specific, very pointed. So I think it would be interesting to open up for those who are interested in the Noise app. I don't think that is explainable within like a survey, like a call. It would mean maybe having a particular meeting where like 2 or 3 facilitators can tutor those who are new at this in order to understand how the Noise app works, how the Launchpad works, how the DJ Pro works, how Logic Pro works, how Ableton, how a musical instrument works, how singing works. And so I'm excited about July, maybe opening up. I don't want to be holding as much space in July because I feel that there are so many gifted global space holders who have so much experience. And also I want some of you guys to discuss the power the 12 stages have, as opposed to just breaking that also and working with simpler waves. Whereas there are communities where some people don't have to go through some of the basic stages. So thank you, Oscar. Katarzina. Cassia.
Yeah, you can say Kate, Kasia, Kate. Hello. I want to ask you for the beginning. This is very interesting what you've said today, but I have a lot of questions, and I don't have a lot of questions. Something like I have a big mess, because everything what you spoke and what you show us, it's very I think hard for me to understand how is it working, you know, but I'm really interested to learn how to do it. So you said that in July there will be a lot of another Zoom calls that somebody will said how is it working, right? How can I?
Yes, we have been thinking about the possibility where the playlisting or music production elements can happen outside of the lecture calls as well. If we don't want to sacrifice the lectures, because there's so much framework and there's so much science to consider, we can do that. But at least one of the calls in July should be practical. My one advice would be just to download them, because you won't understand them unless you use them yourself. You want to make a list and one by one start with a noise app. Let's say you're in a cafe, you're bored, you're in an airplane, you're in an airport, you find it noisy. Or you could just be in your bedroom, put in 10 minutes a day, 15 minutes a day. If you can put in more, then that's good. Then that's you cannot teach your mind. We can introduce them to you, show you what some of them may be like, but you really need to teach your body how to do it. It's exactly how we do it in inner dance. If you think about these and you don't hold them yourself, you won't get into it, literally. You will just feel overwhelmed and it's just going to feel complicated. So when you learn them even a little bit, when you start using them in your sessions, it's supposedly the energy itself needs to be the one that teaches you. You have to see it from the kinds of feedbacks that would appear. So what would happen in the beginning is you start very conservative. You would start with using certain things to bring underneath whatever you're using already. Maybe you're using songs, maybe you're using Spotify, but what would it mean to add some extra layers? So what I did today was I basically just explained to all of you what I do. Yeah, like I opened up the hood. You know what that expression means? Like, what is underneath the hood? I basically just showed you what's underneath the hood. So that, like you, Cassia, you're using a lot of the ready playlists that I've sent out, the 7 states, the synthesis ones, the ones in the general playlist folders. I basically share the technology behind them, particularly when it comes to why are there so many layers in some of the playlists that we're using.
Yes.
Hmm.
Yes. And my thank you for the explanation, but I want to tell you that I started to do sessions just 1.5 months ago. So I'm using your playlist. People are very interested and they love inner dance, because one girl said that she have a really bad pain in the back a few years, and nothing helped her except inner dance, and she's coming every time because she said that this is magic, this is incredible, and she loves inner dance, and she is thanking you for that. So thank you from Poland, from people. And but I still don't know how people are using playlists from Spotify, because you said that sometimes it's a slow song, sometimes it's a fast song, but I still don't know how to
This is
manage, for example, my own song.
This is exactly why we need to get to this point where a facilitator needs to construct his or her own playlist at the end of the day, later on. Like the ones that we have created would be models for you to observe what can happen, but for you to respond like live in the moment would be the main step. It's not just the next step, it's really where you would like it to go. So there are people like Christina, for example. She started with the same playlist that you were working with, and then she just then shifted into constructing her own music. And I was wanting the other facilitators to hold the space for the next calls because I wanted them to actually tell their stories and how they started very, very simple. And now they're able to handle super duper complex ground, but they had to start from somewhere. So the feedback right now from anyone saying this is really hard, this is difficult, that's part of the process, but that's really something we need to work on step by step, because this is a course precisely on how people can construct their own. So yeah, like download what you can based on the systems that we're suggesting. If any one of you senior space holders or trainers, if you could write it on the chat box, what are the normal apps that are used by global interdance facilitators, then people can work on that, so that when we go into the tutorial classes, then you guys might have actual questions is coming from, I tried this out, now I have a question regarding something to do with rhythm, with tempo, with BPM, with depth, with the effects section, and so on and so forth. But for you as a starting point, it would be, if you're really liking the playlists, then we would suggest the DJ app would be something for you to start with, because it would allow you to slow down or make faster the actual playlist itself. You know what I mean? Because you might get to a point where if you become aware of the changes that are happening in the room, if you have this power, if you have this capacity to alter the speed, even just that, if you didn't have it, you wouldn't think about it. You actually wouldn't be aware. But if you knew you had it, and you knew that the subtle difference of changing even a little bit, like a tiny bit, the more variation basically you give to people, the more they shift away from duality. You know, like Poland, talking about Poland, this polarization or polarity. When you're able to shift across poles or opposites, it gives people more diversity. So there is a danger in using some of these playlists too often, because when people get used to the pattern or the sequence too much, they actually learn to anticipate and expect. And when they do that, and it's always the same tempo, it's always the same harmony, the same melody, addictions and attachments could happen. Like in the beginning, because you're new at this, then it's okay. It's not that long yet. Some of these tendencies might happen 6 months down the line, 8 months down the line, 5 months down the line. Introduction could be as long as 6 months. That's all well and good. But for you to at least learn it now, this early, so that by that time comes when people are what would happen in many communities, and they would start to get bored. It's like, okay, what's next? I've been there, I've done that. What actually is next? So maybe it's too early for you to start experimenting too much, because they're still excited about the entry point you gave them. And these playlists are quite an entry point to begin with. They're quite massive, energy speaking. They're not song based. They already have a lot of what I'm discussing inputted, but we have to really almost underestimate the power of people to transform. And when they reach a certain plateau, they will be looking for something more. So that's when you want to be ready.
Okay, great. Is it possible that you can write PDF about that, what we've said today on that, like the most important things about the rhythm and about this everything what you said today, because this is very important. And I was thinking maybe you can put some 3, 4 you
Okay.
know,
Yeah.
small.
Good. Yeah, we'll try. Yeah, sounds good.
Thank you.
For July, we could do that. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Cassia. Okay. Anyone would like to contribute? Facilitators included. Maybe you can help me ground a lot of these concepts as well. Yeah, we're introducing an integrative system, whereas in the past we were introducing like really basic systems, like the coursework that we give around the world now. We need to give everyone all the options. If you are going to be holding a space, we need to introduce you to all the options. So yeah, who else would like to speak?
Hi, this is Sahil speaking. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Hi, this is Sahil speaking.
The sound's muffled for some reason.
Okay.
You're in Belgium.
Yes, exactly.
Can hear Sophie's kids.
Okay, I'm gonna connect on my laptop when I will join, so I have a better sound.
Okay. If anyone wants to connect before Ahlan, that's okay. You can just wait for him to set up. Basically, we are shortcutting a lot of material. Like a lot of people would be really interested in how do you construct like a whole wave, actually, like a 60-minute cycle. There could even be like a class where we would take you into an entire playlisting process. And instead of laying down, you could watch how a playlist is constructed from scratch. Okay, Diana.
Hi, everybody. Do you hear me?
Yes.
Well, it's very interesting, but still it's very scary for me to imagine doing my own playlist. I would love to sometime, but what I'm doing right now, at least, is hearing a lot of playlists from everyone who is sharing, and I love to see how I love to study the bodies of the practitioners, how they react, how their the eye movement, the breathing, and if there's not so much movement, physical movement, but at least the breathing, the eye movement, and I can already feel I can accompany at least with my own physical music, like with clapping or stamping or doing some type of noise with simple instruments, But I think this is helping me starting a starting point, at least, if this is of any help for anybody.
Yeah, like that's really powerful when you learn to use the room itself as like an instrument. It could be your body or it could be like the floor, That's really where like a lot, I mean, for me, this started with that. Like before I used any musical instrument, I was using the house as the musical instrument itself. So it's learning to vibrate from what seems like chaos at a certain point, but it's actually, everything is an instrument, everything is music. Let's see if Ahlan is connected already. Are you good? Are you switched?
Yes, I'm
Yeah.
good. I hope you guys can hear me well. Hi, everyone. Yeah, thank you for this call. And I was really looking forward to share also about my experience, and this is a bit about my experience because it's I am not a musician. I am not like easily even tapping into a beat. And at the beginning, I've been starting with the creation of the music was for me like, oh wow, that's something big happening. How can I do this? That so many layers and so many things and so many words and I haven't even, like some of the words I don't even know. And so it was very, very interesting for the first moment to really take it slow, but then but also to experience with the body. There's something important which once Pi told me is there's something about but the mind need to understand, but there's also something about that body is really knowing it. And through this was really like a simple um, sentence at that point, but it sounds like a simple sentence, but at that point it was something big for me. So I could really easily understand, okay, uh, that just do it. And so start with with an app. And when I look at back right now, we say easily when we look into the brain, when let's say a baby has so many brain neurons in the brain, and all they are firing at the same time, and slowly there are some brains firing at the same time, and they are creating a pattern, and they are creating a rhythm. And similarly, when we when we like even when the language, how it started, like Pi explained, like we started to clap, maybe all clap together, and they're all firing at the same time and clapping at the same time. There's somehow a rhythm created, a pattern created, so that we could create, even communicate with each other. And this is some kind of rhythm. And when we look into the brain and into the brain entrainment, it for me feels like the personal entrainment. And then we have the global, the planetary entrainment with the circadian rhythm, the annual, circannual rhythm, and then this metal level on the level of when we go to the cosmic, into the cosmic rhythm. How is it connected? Um, so it's really an different layers and dimensions opens up when we start to play. So at the beginning, I actually used a playlist, pre-made playlist, and I was using them in a DJ app. And then I had some possibilities. So the simple possibilities you have in the DJ app, you have the tempo. You can make it fast or slow, and then you have also some effects which you can use. And slowly we added later on also in the time of a history of playlisting, also my noise came into it. So we could add some noises and we could play around. It's the sometimes I also realized that some of the buttons I pressed were not even working, or I felt like they were not working. So there's sometimes I choose a song and another song is coming up, and it's just happening. And so it's like my body, my fingers knows already what to play, while my body is really trying to catch up what is going to play, or what is going to happen, what is to understand. So I had to um, deconstruct my learning system to let my mind sit back on the back seat while allow my body to be in the driver's seat, so that there was something happening through this. So all those theories, what we learn is super important. We can really slowly see also with the facilitation of the bodies and of the room, because I know here are many people who has facilitated and have a lot of experience, and some of you are really starting now and laying down to a playlist, or also starting to create your own, or even using some. And there's a lot of different uh, ways to step into this process of facilitation. And how do I facilitate? And so it is really your journey, your path. So take it slow, allow your body to speak. There is an expression happening. There is at the same time there were sometimes I would even sit with I would not even look into the space. I would sit, my body was faced towards some corners, and I would play some sounds. And if you would ask me 2 years before that, I would say I would never ever have thought about this, that it is possible. Yeah. So this is really a path into oneself, and a slow process of learning, but it can be also very fast. Within a day, within a minute, you can learn it, and it is there. So I want to encourage everyone to approach change. And how do we approach change? Like when we have something which is already there, which is known, which is a story, which is important for us. We need to know something so that we can trust. We know a story which is circulating. But when we want to get out of the story, we need to create something which is new. So if there is, let's say, a song, it's good to sometimes it's good to play a song. Sometimes it's good to create those emotional circles. But then how do you get out of those people? And similarly, like though, let's play something which is never have been there. You have infinite possibilities with all the sounds and all the noises. So how can you create it? It's in the moment what the space is asking. And when you create something new, you are creating some changes in some circuits in the brain and in the body and in the space, in the cosmic. And similarly, when we allow ourselves to use tools in the new ways, we are creating something new. So open up ourselves to look into this with curiosity than with fear. So it's allow us to dive deeper into this different processes, and the understanding of the science is already there. It is inside you. All what we know is nothing new to us. It's something to be remembered. It's something to be whole. It's already held in our body. Our body is an instrument. Our body knows what a resonance is. Our body know what a sine wave is, what is doing. Our brain is producing its own brain waves. It is creating, and it's creating the changes. So it's how can we allow the space, this remembrance to be happen? It's a journey. So yeah, that's what I feel.
There was
Yeah.
something that you said that's important, and it's interesting. It's not obvious. It's not easy to talk about as well. As you well know, Ahilan, like when I hold a space in Maya, when I'm facilitating, I'm not looking at the people. I'm rarely looking at the people. It's almost never. I almost never look at people now. And I'm checking in with myself. Like when I walk away from a session, and usually the morning sessions are the ones that are easy, like they tend to be really intense. Some of you have been in Maya, so you know what the morning sessions can be like. 7 o'clock in the morning until 8. People just woke up after like a long day the day prior. Some people have gone to the universe. There might have been screaming, there might have been but when I used to hold space like many years ago, after the intensity, and I would be everywhere, like holding bodies, I would be present in that sense. I normally couldn't walk away from the space, and there would be these attachments, entanglements, and also expectations, and like needing and wanting it to have been a certain way. And like the last years, when I discovered like these new ways, which here in Maya isn't new, and for a lot of you it's not new, it's quite old. You've been using these for a while now. I like it how I'm able to walk away from the space without the need to actually hold on. Like I just feel clear. I just feel like everything that needed to happen just happened. And that involved like being there but not there. Like there's something about these new systems where I'm in a process of creation, but the system is creating itself, and I needed to go somewhere else for me to be able to be there with people, not in a personal way, not in an attached way, but in a in another dimension, like in a dimension that's holding the many dimensions like all together. So literally I'm not really facing the corner. I'm usually facing the audience, but I'm not looking at them. In fact, the more I look at them, the more I would lose the connection to a dimension that I'm used to working with more and more and more these last years. So when it's the meta that's holding like a lot of the mesa like in place. So I yeah, when you share that, it's like I actually thought about it for the first time in a different way, because I normally don't like uh looking at it in a simple way where people would be like, what are you doing? You have to be present. But I've been there, I've done that like so many times, again and again, infinite loops. And I actually had inside me a desire to be in another space altogether that wasn't like wanting people to have certain experiences, like needing them to, it's just lack of self-worth sometimes, or wanting to give more. It's the people pleasing. It's like needing a certain type of feedback would be it, like wanting a certain type of feedback, needing something to happen in a particular way when I'm holding bodies. I i i had to work to get away from that, and it's I'm really happy to hear someone else say it. Okay, Caro, I'm excited to hear from you.
Hi everyone, and thank you, thank you. I wanted to share a little bit about my own process about playlisting, and also what happened like during the little like gathering that we did with the Spanish group that I'm holding like in May also. It's about like fear extension, like extension about like how to hold music also, live music. So I see Julio is there from our group. I think Natalia and Jimena was there. They were there also. So yeah, about how I did start is like I was really attracted by how to bring together elements to make my own playlists, because I remember I never, only once I used the one playlist, but I never used like a PI's playlist or other facilitators playlists when I started to facilitate. And I was like kind of super afraid also to touch bodies. So I was like telling to my groups like about like how I did start to facilitate. I was not touching people because I don't want it to pretend to do something. And I was really like into the music stuff, the vibrational like elements of the music. And so I had so many ideas. I remember when I started to study inner dance like 4 years ago, I had so many ideas, like yet many playlists, like list and combination possible. So I was super excited when we will start to practice it. So I will say that yeah, I started like with what I had at home with Logic Pro, and I started to make like what I call like collage with songs and different vibrations and noises. And this, I was really super geeking on it. I don't know, I was really attracted to it, and it was like kind of facile for me to jump into this. And I was really like playing with sound, but I had like the most like intense like kind of experience of feeling my body like going into the experience while I was channeling like the music, because it's not about you. Even if you have many ideas, there is this space like in between where the facilitator, the person, like the planet, is facilitating the other bodies, holding the other bodies. But it's a really new space for me to discover and to practice within our dance, which I really love. It's like the observer like doing at the same time. So it's really interesting. So I started simple, but I was super geeking and I wanted to train myself. So I was like like drawing the 12 stages, and I was like, okay, this is the more delta, blah blah. So I was like kind of combining sounds, selecting sounds and songs also. So I was training, like doing, like creating a lot of playlists, and I was like, just even if I was not using it with bodies, I was like, I felt it like in my body. So I started like that, and then after I was like, for me, quite like happy with what I was doing with Logic Pro. Then Pi like started to say, so now it's over, kind of. Now we're gonna use some synths, noises, and everything. I was like, oh my god, no! I just like I'm just getting like to be happy with it, like, and to have like not experience, but I feel like quite like more at ease. So now I have to start over. So it was like Launchpad, all the apps that you've seen. And I was at the beginning like, wow, such a headache. I don't know these things. I need to start over. So how do we do that? And I remember a conversation with Pai, he was telling me, like, one thing at a time, like practice 5 minutes a day, each app. And I will recommend like to you to use like any app and create also, because it's about creation. All about this is like super science, spiritual, blah blah blah, and then I love it, but it's just about like creation also, and feeling like feeling the space, feeling the vibe, feeling your body and the vibration through your corpus callosum, if I want to be scientific, but just your head, your body. So just I would say like have fun. And I was super like happy about my group, because super proud, like a proud mama, like proud mommy kind of, because when we gather like in May during the afternoon, during the morning, I was holding like a big like session like for 2 hours or something. They were like spaced out kind of, and we lost the notion of time and all. And in the afternoon I say, okay guys, so now it's your turn. So now you're gonna playlist, you're going to take the iPad, we gather some instruments also. So at the beginning it was like, yeah, they were observing, like trying stuff, and I was feeling them, because me, I was just laying down. Just wanted to lay down and say, okay, I'm listening. So it was really super fun. And they did it. And they fucking did it. I was super proud, because I really felt like they were like, okay, yeah, we felt it, like we had this dialogue after that, afterwards, and they were like super into it. And the most intense part was when they used only like instrument, like analog acoustic analog instrument, like egg shakers and stuff like that. So just be creative, confident, and just have fun. Also, just for me, it's about having fun in the space. Thank you.
Super fun. Flor.
Hi. I don't know if my internet is 100% strong, so if I disappear, just wait for a few seconds. I think one thing that I can say it first of all to people is that we don't have to be like Pi right away. Because when we see all of this new toys, new instruments, especially the recent years participants or facilitators, might feel like we need to jump into doing them right away, which is also amazing. A little bit of my journey with the playlisting is I guess I've been lucky enough to have witnessed the ride of the inner dance playlisting from the very old days, and have experienced a lot of years of facilitating with Pi, and learned to really layer his playlists, a lot of the live playlists. If I can only describe Pi how he facilitates, it's fun. And it's really true. He goes into the corner and just in his iPad without having to look at the people. And I've witnessed that through him, of playing songs, playing the holding the playlists, holding the music, and then touching people, slowly and surely into not even physically going to people anymore. I've witnessed that to myself now over the years, that we will learn as facilitators more and more, according to the amount of experimentations we do and the experience we do, that we will learn to layer, we will learn to manipulate the sounds, or ask the body to remember the sound that they are, the music that they are, more and more, the more we experiment and the more we play around with things, the more we have fun, as Caro said, and the more we just go for it, like as Ahilan said, because I myself am somebody who's afraid of technology, basically, and have had very long years of not good relationship with technology. Like in the middle of my journey, many times happened to me that speakers would just stop working. So luckily I have the skills with instruments, and I use my words a lot, and I use my songs a lot. But yeah, one of the things that I would really recommend, and I say it to the people in my group again and again to remind them, is it's really very helpful to go back to the basics and to have those basics before we jump into the many really intricate instruments right now. I mean, maybe it's not, it won't feel right for everyone, but I suggest that at least to the people that I get to guide, the 12 stages is really very helpful to go back to and review and experience. Actually, one of the things that I love with being able to hold immersions is that I expose the bodies to a little bit of the older ways of playlisting, so that they can experience the difference of going into the meta, taking people into the cosmos, and then also taking them into the mesa and taking them into the stories every now and again, and being able to go into those different aspects of our existence, you know, which is the different aspects and ways of the playlisting. Yeah. I honestly do not know how it is for you guys who are or who have just been exposed to the newer playlists, the ones that are recorded already. So I can't fully recommend through experience what you should do, but I think that's something that might be able to help, so that it's not so scary to completely jump on playlisting yourself. But the way I envision it is, if you are already using or very used to using the recorded playlists of Pi or of any other facilitators, is to just slowly, consciously layer something. It doesn't matter if it's your voice, it doesn't matter if it's a certain music, it doesn't matter if it's instrument. But I think just take it slowly and learn to play with adding instruments and adding layers through different sounds, the ones that you create, the ones that you can play through the music, to the technology. Yeah, so that's just my sharing for my experience. I was so scared also, and resisted for a long time to even play DJ Pro or to have the 4 columns of the DJ Pro. For a long time, I stayed with just the 2 layers. Every now and again, I still just stay with 2. But that's because I layer with many other things, like with instruments. What I said in the beginning, that we don't necessarily, I feel, have to completely jump right away on how Pi is or how the very experienced facilitators are. I feel that we have to really tune in on how we are, what are our strengths, and stay with that for a while, or even maybe stay with that for a long time, so that we can jump into the many different versions of us through our newer experimentations. Yeah, first, personally for me, I layer a lot with my voice and the instruments, so that really helps me a lot. So yeah, just sharing that there is even those that are really very experienced facilitators, there is that either resistance, or there is still that fear of going deep into all this DAO and all this Logic Pro and the very technical music production, just to make you feel like you're not alone in this. Oh my God, what are those things? It's actually very funny Pi, because a lot of my participants were chatting at the Zoom chat privately and in our group, like, so exciting to be able to see all of the instruments and the toys. I call it Pi's toys. And to show in the Zoom call, there's so many Pi's toys in that room where he is at right now. But I personally see Pi that he would sometimes still be just in his iPad, because the music is through our body, the music is through our voice, the music is through our way of holding. The layers are in our way of being. And yeah, so that's all I think I'm gonna share.
Amazing. All of this is so helpful. Christina.
Hey everyone. Yeah, I would like to share a little bit my transition, because when Kasia was talking, remember my story also. I start with the Pi playlist, and each time that I was holding a session, I had to ask Pi, oh Pi, which playlist I have to use now? It was like, okay. So I'm not a musician. I have no idea about music. I'm a person with not a big library of songs also. So the first thing I was doing is when I was in the bar taking a cafe or beer, I listened to the songs that were playing in the bar, and when I like one, I was with the Shazam taking this song, and when I had not big but enough library, I start to make my own playlist. Also, one time I remember the last playlist I did. I wanted to do something about the earth, so I put in YouTube earth, and then there start to be like songs about earth. So I took all these songs from YouTube, and I make a playlist with all these songs that were related about the earth, and it was very funny. This is like I think Caro said, was super nice to start like this, because you can understand maybe how the songs and the layers and how to construct. Also for me was the 12th stage that we were talking about, because for me was the beginning, and was the way to start to understand how to make this. After playing with these playlists, and I use the super basic was not Logic Pro because for me it was super difficult. I used the DJ that is the more basic one, and for me it was enough. So you don't have to go to the difficult ones if you are not very technician. The basic ones is good. And then I start to download the apps. The first one was My Noise. And at the beginning, I started using my intuition, but one day I need to maybe study more this app. So I spent 2 days, I remember 2 days going in each sound that is in My Noise and writing down in which noise, what kind of sounds, vibrations, or everything, and I write down all in a paper. And I remember the next session I had, I was with the paper going with my iPad in the session, and yeah, now I want a slow song. So I was to my paper slow songs, and I choose one. So it was super funny also to do that. It's a way to learn also the sounds that the My Noise library has. And yeah, for me, it's playing with the apps and spend time with that. It's super funny. As Pai said, when you have 5 minutes that you don't know what to do, take the My Noise, take an app, and yeah, and play with it. Yeah, I think that's it. Thank you.
Wow, I really super enjoyed listening to all of you. Yeah, I want to start to integrate the call. I'm trying to convey something here that I find quite important. Like originally, all inner dance facilitators, like in the beginning, had to go through the initiation process of working at least with song selection and song combination. Already that holds enough fear and anxiety for a space holder to be confronted by the situation of, like, it's already quite scary to hold bodies, to hold spaces. But observing so many people from all walks of life getting to this space of being able to do it was actually amazing. That was the point. That was the whole point, to overcome the first and then the second and then the third hurdle. The the philosophy of aporia or aporetics is the study of how when there's like a roadblock. This is from Jacques Derrida. When one has to jump over the blockage, that's actually when a real thinking process has begun, especially a creative thinking process. An authentic consciousness begins there. And so it is with children. If you don't give children like rules or parameters or limits, there actually wouldn't be growth. So facilitators need to grow, because facilitators are normally coming from the experience of becoming energy, being spirit, being vast. That spirit needs a container. The spirit needs limits. So when we give these challenges, these are all part of it. Now, what is the point anyway? Like, why are we doing this? So when it comes to the conversations around music, what are the hidden gifts this actually offers is it's a brain state. Okay, you can do it through experience. You can lay down, you can explode. But for you to integrate and to be able to do it with eyes open, like in the world, introducing it to your family, being able to carry this into your work, not just to hold space for other people, but even when you're working in your normal job, you can hold that consciousness. Holding the music in this way what it actually allows you as a brain state is to be able to manage many things at the same time. I mean, it's already inbuilt in the process itself. When you are holding bodies, you are holding many things at the same time. The whole lecture that I gave on neural oscillations today, like frequencies, rhythms, polyrhythms, multiple rhythms, it's the same thing. Like before children went to school, before society developed into what it looks like now in a cosmopolitanism, modernization, tribal man used to be able to handle many things at the same time. In the last call, we were making the distinction between the masculine and the feminine, and one of the maybe more primal distinctions would be women actually can hold more things at the same time than men. There's like an anthropological study that looks at how it was men who actually learned how to hold like an instrument, usually like a weapon. It could be like a tool in the right hand, thereby contralateralizing the brain so that language or left brain thinking would be more activated by right hand motion. Women didn't have that capacity because when they were holding on to the baby while they were cooking, while they were, they needed to be ambidextrous. They needed both hands, multitasking all the time. It was men, it was, masculinization. Whatever your gender, it was the masculine that had to learn to devote language and sequential thinking in one side, and then like music and everything happening simultaneously on the other side. So in a way, we're evolving, but we're also devolving. And then when you evolve from that devolved state, learning to practice, not just to experience, would be key. So when we introduce these concepts and then these tools to you, it's meant for that, basically. When you study the science, your facilitation will need the tools, because when you start to understand, okay, there's this thing about the limbic, thing about addiction, thing about the basal ganglia, about rhythm, about dimensionality, the autonomic nervous system, your wisdom, especially your embodied wisdom, would desire a way to become coherent with what you're learning. So as you study, you will need the tools, and that's why we're giving you the tools. Like for you to make the wisdom practical, and wisdom needs to be embodied, otherwise it's just knowledge. For that to translate to wisdom, it needs to be practiced. It needs to be lived. It can't just be like a concept. It can't just be thought about. It needs to be enacted. It needs to be lived. It needs to be embodied. So we need to take you away from the mat. Basically, it's what you're saying. If you're in a training, it means you're committed, that you're not just going to stay in the mat now. You will be holding the space. You will be wondering what is the most integrated way of holding the space. So there's growth here, there's development here. So for those who are stuck with using ready-made playlists, we don't want you to not have the same opportunity or historicity the early facilitators had on at least doing song selection and song combination. But what we're actually giving you is a little bit easier, because when you have the chance to create the song right there on the spot, and a playlist is technically a song, it's just like a longer song. Most songs in radio could only be up to 3 minutes long. 6 minutes was super long. Songs then were not experiential. They were not entrainment. They were entertainment. They were there to contain like a small message in a compact way. Here, we're extending the duration of the song to last about an hour long, and it has entrainment capacities. So when we give you the chance to construct that, having the tools would actually make this easier than song selection and sound combination, because there's some limitations with just working with songs because of the amount of messages that are pre-constructed by the artist, the producer, the industry itself. That there are also lots of limitations, energetically speaking, with what's available in the rhythms in popular music. A lot of these need to be slowed down or sped up enough for them to take people beyond the dimensions of the familiar. So if your intention is to take people into what they know already, then that's all well and good. Keep them looping around that. Let them go back to their traumas. Let's keep going into the experiences that they know. But if you wanted to go beyond, you're interested in getting people to remember the source, like an actual experience of going there, to really be in it. That's where constructing something new would be definitely like an interesting thing. So that's a commitment that we made when we constructed a 1-year study. That's why we are putting in like this much time. So I'm really excited about July, not being the one to hold this so much. I'm interested in global trainers contributing, and then we can reformat or maybe just add to the current calls so that I think Logic Pro for Mac users would be particularly an interesting program to think about. Hearing stories from Caro and then from Christina on the possibility where you could just put a whole bunch of songs into a possible like linear state. So basically, like these could be simply just songs that you layer, and then there could be like 2 or 3 layers that you work with. So I think there needs to be a tutorial on that. I'd be excited for there's an echo. I don't know if it's just because I opened this. I would be excited for Caro to lead like a Logic Pro call. I would be interested in those who would like to speak about instruments. Oscar would be one, Flora would be another. We could have a lot of people helping to hold the noise app together. And when we introduce that, for now, we'll introduce it in general. But for you to use that in public, we do have a contract that we need to introduce you to, with a contract with the owner and founder of Noise App. For you to, I think, sign that contract, you need to value it. You need to understand it. And that takes maybe either you using it a little bit and then, or us explaining it more, demonstrating the power. But for you to be in integrity with being able to use, for me, one of the most enabling, powerful tools in the inner dance realm, you want to be in coherence with the owner, and there's a small contract that you need to sign. No one else in the world is allowed to use the Noise app in public. It's actually us. We're the only ones allowed to use it in public, but you need to sign a contract to be able to do it. The app, the synths would be interesting. They're actually a lot simpler than you think, based on what I demonstrated to you with the Animug Z. That's the one I put up on my iPad. You don't need to put the arpeggio on. You could simply just like put on a single note or like a low and high and leave it there. We could teach you that in like 2 minutes or 3 minutes. You don't have an excuse, in the sense that my own kids, beginning when they were the age of 3 or 4 or 5, they were already using these apps. When you do look at the App Store age settings, like a lot of what we're showing has 3+ in it. 4 years old can use it. So you can't say this is complicated because my kids can use it. You can use it. So don't think it's complex. What I showed you are just the possibilities that would match the concepts that are being shared in the scientific dimension. Like if we explain a science, we will then give you a tool on how to enact that science. But in the beginning, you don't need to use it in that complex way. It's just really downloading it, learning to put on a particular tone. It could be just one frequency or two frequencies. Then you can just leave it there, and you can put songs on top of it. That's what layering means, in accordance to what Floor and anyone else had mentioned. Layer, that's what it means. It's putting something that's not just a song. So that if you have the transition between songs, like let's say, think about the noise app. You literally could just put a white noise in the background. That's it. It's like a white noise can activate the parietal lobe, the occipital lobe, if you were doing a lot of work with the frontal lobe and the temporal lobe. It could like hold the pons, the cerebellum. It could be that simple, like just put one noise on, or let's say, okay, I want to put two. Like, can you teach me how to put another one on? So we teach you how to press plus, multi, and then you want the frequency, then you can look for it yourself. You can ask us where the gamma is hiding, where the delta is hiding, where the beta is hiding, where the alpha is hiding. You have to be grateful that we actually are able to handhold you. We constructed a platform together, like all of us are involved in this, where we can handhold you, where no question is too simple or basic and complex. Like we actually have a whole scaling system where some of you might want to take this all the way to levels that we have not even thought about. We can help because we have the capacity. Like we've been studying this ahead of time because we knew that these would be interesting for some. I mean, we'd like to believe that it would be interesting for all, and that could take time. That's okay. Now, let's just be clear that the trainings that you are like going through now with us, they're not the trainings that we were giving 10 years ago, 12 years ago, 15 years ago, or 5 years ago. It's not even the trainings that we were giving 3 years ago or last year. These trainings are comprehensive. They are able to give even beginners like the whole mapping, so that when you start, you don't have to start with just one option. We'll give you all the options. And going back then to the element or concept of growth, this is really just meant to help you to grow. It's to get you out of the mat means so much right now, to get you upright, to get you vertical, to get you with your eyes open, to get you to manage many things at the same time means that you will be a highly intelligent and highly wise being both at the same time, that this would apply to everything else in life. In the last call, I had described that there were certain brain circuits that are a lot thicker in musicians than normal people. Okay, like Beethoven. I mean, Albert Einstein was a musician to begin with. Okay, like a lot of geniuses, a lot of mathematicians are musicians as well. You don't need to be a musician. Doing simple song selection and combination actually thickens your corpus callosum. It will also add volume to your arcuate fasciculus. That creates a bridge between your Broca's and Wernicke's area, which tends to be emptied out when there's too much intensity. Language production and language comprehension goes down great degrees when people are doing intense energy work, which means they have a hard time doing word selection and word combination. I mean, they might be able to speak well, but there tends to be a limit to the vocabularization. Like the words tend to start to loop around the words like energy and kundalini and this and that. To go into developmental stages means being able to grow conceptually, so that when I talk about subdivisions in rhythms, there could be super divisions. When you start to handle concepts, to grow mentally, to be able to have cognitive developmental systems, means being able to hold like subdivisions of concepts within the concepts. They're called sub level categories within the categories that you know. It's like organizing your own mind and brain and body means putting folders inside the folders that would have master folders in them. So when you organize your music, you're also organizing your brain and your mind in that same way, because bottom line of what we're actually doing when we commit to work like this, and when we commit to that work being in large part, or at least in part, like vibratory in nature, can you imagine the actual ability for one to like organize their own frequencies? Just think about that. Like imagine that. Like you're actually, it's a course on how to organize one's frequencies, cosmic, personal, right? Like for your service to others to disorganize their frequencies so that there could be a reorganization. But for you, it goes beyond laptops and tablets and phones and clouds and apps and whatnot. You know, that it's organizing frequencies, which you are doing in your brain. You're synchronizing neural oscillations by the quadrillions. There are, yeah, thousands of types of oscillators, but how many, but considering all neurons are oscillating, even your cells have oscillators, then you can actually organize them. Isn't that like mind-blowing? That just blows my mind whenever I think about that. Like when I look at these tools, I don't see them as tools. I understand them as what they are. Coming from my story of having been an energy and going back to Earth and realizing that human society has evolved to this point where technology doesn't need to be an evil thing. Technology is an ability to store and hold information. So if you make that spiritual, yet you don't run away from actual technology that is available, that could systematize. And if we could teach children that and so on and so forth, we would change the schooling system. We would change the medical system. We would change the corporate system. We would change the political system. And we would also change the religious systems, because they all need to value what we are all interested in, which is music. Now, I really want to be honest with how behind science is on understanding the effect of music on the brain. It's incredible. It's incredible how neurology, neuroscience doesn't actually understand how music affects the autonomic nervous system. It doesn't understand entrainment. No, it doesn't. I've looked at everything and nothing comes close to developing a coherent, consensual system that holds the complexity. So where we are at now, it's very cutting edge. It's super cutting edge. And I don't want you to not have access to that. I would really love for you to be current, for you yourself to contribute either by way of experience or by way of knowledge. So a lot of what we share to you in the talks, the conversations, it took a while. It literally took like eons of all these bodily experiences around the world to construct these notes together. But you can see that we can't give you the notes without also giving you the tools to enact those notes. The simple mechanisms simply will not work. It's not enough because of the insights that we're being given as to how much transformation is actually taking place in the human brain. The changes are happening so fast we can barely keep track. That's why we are innovating in order to keep up with just how much the brain is changing, not just through the internet, social media, but and psychedelics and whatnot, but also through the spiritual transformations that are becoming accessible to so many. So when we teach you some of these tools, it comes sometimes in the form of learning how to hold space, but one of my deep intentions is actually to help the facilitator to organize his or her own brain. To learn music is to develop a whole brain system, like musical intelligence, along with verbal, along with mathematical intelligence. Humans need it. It's much needed, especially maybe the new way we're understanding music. So we would really love for you to take up the drum, really, like to learn to use your voice, find your voice, to like look for these small things. Like for me, like my favorite is like this big, like I had to get this rain stick constructed. You know, like our Maya spaces need these. Like arm the energy, like give the energy the tools. If it's not you, like give the energy tools. Teach your body so that the energy can use your body is a tool, and then the instruments are extensions of your body, which is an extension of the energy. And then the energy would know what to do. What the energy is looking for sometimes is vocabulary. And when it starts to loop, the energy itself is like, no, it's not going there. It's not becoming clear. It's looping. What you want to do is give the energy like a way to, what we're manipulating isn't bodies. It sometimes seems like we're manipulating music. That's not what we're manipulating. What we're manipulating is the perception and experience of space and time. That's what we're manipulating, not space and time. You cannot manipulate space and time. What you can manipulate is how we are perceiving and experiencing it. You can't manipulate bodies as well. You can manipulate the perception and experience of space and time. Because in any single body, all of the dimensions coexist already in a complete way. You can't reduce it, you can't add to it. It's perfect, it's irreducible, it's absolutely resonant. What changes is the perception and the experience of space and time. And so what are we doing? What is the space holder doing? Which is also in this case like a time holder. That's what we're doing. So don't let anyone asking questions about the music to reduce it. We're really just talking about music. We're not just studying music. We're studying any tool, and then it's always like a combination of tools. We don't take away the others to do with touch, verbal cues, body position, like smell, all the senses, like all of them put together, like balance, temperature, pain, pleasure, magnetism, electricity, all of those come together. But I think what had been undeveloped in humans because of the way we became very visual is we lost our auditory powers. We lost it way back when we went into book-based learning, like reading and writing, needed to develop the visual cortex and had to lose a lot of the powers the tribal man had when we were walking around in the dark. So the auditory cortex is now firing up, and it's exciting a lot of people. It's not just in inner dance, like music has been changing, the use of psychedelics, the spiritual modalities is actually like increasing the activation in the temporal lobe, but we can't shut down the occipital, the parietal, and the parts of the prefrontal that normally also we forget when it becomes too auditory. Like balance is key. Okay, so that's us. That's me. I don't know, sharing that screen while I was talking. Sorry about that. So don't be afraid to write down your questions. Keep them there, and we will talk between the global trainer community as to how to maybe offer more calls. So this is where it becomes more elective. Like if you're not interested, then it's okay. The calls will be there because some people might be interested. What we need is to be able now that we generalize things, we need to be able to talk to one thing at a time. That's a skill that people need to learn, because when you become too energy, you actually lose that. You're not able to hold things one at a time. It becomes really overwhelming for you to live in time, to study. Actually, this is one of the last things I wanted to say. For me, in terms of my own personal experience, grounding as a father, as someone who lives in a community who has so many projects and tries to create all these systems for the world. When I say like put 5 minutes or put in the hours every day, how it normally works is you learn like a one system, one at a time. Okay, put in some time there, do that repetitively, and then learn something else. So what the brain and mind learns to do is to integrate that. So later, so for example, when I have certain programs, for example, like Ableton Live, when I work with a program like this, it's not actually a program, it's a program with many, many programs. So all of these single pieces would be instruments. And all of these, like I would spend time on one by one. Okay, how does like tritone work? How does operator work? And so I would have these programs that would gather all of my programs. So when I open up, let's say, my plugins, then that's one particular program. And I probably spent like on this one, I used this a lot. I learned it for like 5 minutes. And then I learned texturize for like 5 minutes, which I can put on top of Tundra. So that took me years. I'm just using that as a metaphor for like the more you spend time on the small things because you value them, later on it will integrate into like a one thing. That was my dream. I wanted to live a life where what I was doing for livelihood, for love for the earth, love of humans, love for my kids, like everything would just become a one thing. Now everything I'm doing is just a one thing. There's no separation. So for you to come into integrity with that, if you really value this work, then you would start to invest in all the things that makes this work, right? You would start to invest the small things that makes it work. So I think a lot of people have a hard time with trainings of this scale because they want it all together, all in one package. Like, teach it to me like in a day, teach me in like an hour, give it to me like a 3-day training or 5-day training, and then I know everything already. They actually get turned off when they look at the material within inner dance, and then they look at the amount of tools. Because there's something in the brain that lost the ability to slow down and to go back to school and to train and train the body. So partly we are giving information, but we actually embed this process so that a lot of you who might be coming from energy, that you land back in this more disciplined way of doing certain things like one at a time, so that you're not like rushing, like, oh yeah, that's exciting, I want it right now, make it big, make it fast. We're already lucky that a lot of the technology that comes out of these devices, like the apps, they're meant to be intuitive. They were designed to be used by adults and children. It depends on your scale, your capacity, and your valuation. Like, is it important for you? If you value it, then you would learn the small parts that like are like the folders inside the folders that are inside the folders. So yeah, like it's up to you. Like Flor said, and Ahilan and everyone else, like, start super duper slow. As long as you're doing one thing, it already would change the energy, and then you can put something on top of that. So I hope you are excited, and I'm sure you're overwhelmed, but it's part of it. It's actually the journey itself is that, like, the overwhelm feeling is the inner dance itself. So I think we should close. We're past the 3 hours. let's keep talking, and let's do some of the extra calls for the local groups as well, just to check in with where people are at. Some of the questions you guys will have is, okay, my computer doesn't even work, or I have a really old MacBook, like what can I do? I don't have an iPad. Here's my phone, it's an Android. It's clumsy. What do I do? What do I start out with? Don't be afraid to ask even basic questions like that. Like the platforms are really important. Like when I started to work with my studio workstations, I had nothing. I had no money. I literally had to do the facilitation work or the training work. This wasn't long ago. This is after I did my retreat. This is like 5 years ago, and then the online thing was only starting 4 years ago. I had to buy my first laptop and I had to value it, and then I had to put things in there. So as I was working, then I was earning, and then I was able to invest. But I didn't start with like gazillions in the bank. I literally built the work from the ground up, and I put in the time there. Anyone else who would like to do the same, I'm happy to help, and others would be willing to help. So thank you, thank you. If you can unmute, see each other in July. Thank you, thank you.
Bye, bye.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a
Thank
great
you.
day.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Mm.